Hello, my name is Joe and welcome to my channel. So, as you all probably know by now, Security Breach has been released. And while there are certainly some, issues, there is a lot to talk about as well. Particularly, there's quite a bit to speculate about regarding our three main characters, Freddy, Gregory, and Vanessa. The one we'll be focusing on for this video is Vanessa. In particular, we'll be focusing on two aspects that potentially reveal a ton about Vanessa's character and who she might be. First things first, let's establish what we know about Vanessa, which, honestly, isn't much. We know she's a security guard at the Pizzaplex, obviously. We can be fairly certain she's who we are playing as in FNAF Help Wanted based on context clues and Easter eggs found in this game and FNAF Special Delivery. And we know she's Vanny. Probably. It's still a little unclear. The fire ending made things really confusing. But we'll get back to that. And, that's about it. That's pretty much all we know. Kind of weird how little we actually know about her from the game proper, especially since Vanny was the most foreshadowed antagonist throughout all the trailers. However, like all FNAF games, to get the real story, you have to dig a little bit deeper. It was discovered that hidden around the Pizzaplex, you're able to find mysterious CDs, much like you were able to find tapes hidden throughout Help Wanted. These, though, aren't hidden messages directed toward the player, but rather recordings of what seem to be mandated therapy sessions for Vanessa. And while there is a lot here to think about, I think there's one particular piece of dialogue that will have caught a lot of people's attentions.
Oh, we'll get to know each other in no time. I've read through all your files, so I feel like we've been talking for weeks. I feel like I know your dad, too. Bill, right? Your dad's name was Bill?
Bill? Bill? No, not that Bill. Bill as in short for William? William as in the most notable character in the entire series, William Afton? And it's that concept, regardless of if it's a little bit iffy just based on that alone, that prompted the question that inspired this whole video. Is it possible that Vanessa is the daughter of William Afton? Is it even possible that she is Elizabeth Afton? Well, let's look at the facts. At first glance, no. Absolutely no way. In case you didn't know, Elizabeth has been dead for, about 4 to 5 decades at this point in the series. Oh, and when she was alive, she was, British and a child. But let's take off our skeptic's goggles for a moment and consider all we know about the FNAF universe. 'Cause, really, death and a different voice has never stopped FNAF before. Why would it start now? And when you really think about it, there are a lot of ways to get around death in this universe. Do I think this is the introduction of Fazgoo into the mainline game series? I really hope not. No, what I'm thinking more about is a concept we see in the original FNAF Silver Eyes novel series, with the character of Charlie. For those of you who don't know, major spoilers for the books here, Charlie Emily, William Afton's probable first victim who possessed the puppet in the game series, was killed by Afton when she was a child, and Henry, her father and Afton's business partner, created 4 animatronic versions of Charlie to simulate her through different stages of life. And they were, extremely convincing. Enough so that Charlie had a lot of friends who had no idea she was secretly a robot. She didn't even know she was secretly a robot. Interestingly, the adult version of Charlie was also Circus Baby, who Elizabeth still possessed in that universe. Yeah, I know, it's weird. Regardless, the existence of this within the greater FNAF multiverse does imply that Vanessa being some form of Elizabeth as a reincarnated humanoid animatronic is possible. Now, let's see if the game provides enough information to make this idea actually plausible. First, let's get through the superficial stuff, starting with appearance. Now, we have very little of Elizabeth's original appearance, so we'll have to go by the one time we've actually seen her, in the Circus Baby minigame in Sister Location. And comparing the two, I could honestly kinda see it. It's not exact, obviously, especially given the difference between pixel art and a 3D model, but the eyes look to be quite a similar shade of green, actually. Now, while I recognize how much of a stretch that sounds like, eye color is a very important trait in regard to Elizabeth in these games. It's largely how it was realized that Baby had been possessed by her based on Baby's eye color changing from blue to green after Elizabeth was killed. The other somewhat superficial aspect to think about is Vanessa's voice, which notably lacks a British accent. Which, yeah, it's a pretty big hole in this theory. However, take note of who Vanessa's voice actor is. Heather Masters, who also notably voices Circus Baby, the animatronic Elizabeth possessed. Coincidence? Yeah, probably. Take this point with a grain of salt, since Security Breach honestly has a very small cast, with most of the actors doubling or tripling up on roles. Still, it's enough, I'd say, to not completely sink this theory. Now, moving beyond the surface level things, let's look at what the game actually shows or tells us. And one part I find very notable is a group of service robots you can find when exiting the sewers after Chica's boss fight, posed around a table like a family. Funny enough, it's a very specific family grouping, with a mother, a father, and 3 children, one of which looks like Baby, while another is missing its head. In case you couldn't tell, this seems like a pretty clear representation of the Afton family, with Baby being Elizabeth, the headless one being the Bite of 83 victim, and the ringleader being William, as he's the one who's really running everything behind the scenes. If Vanessa is some kind of reincarnated Elizabeth through whatever means, it's possible the memories of her family are repressed, and Vanny, this alternate state of consciousness for her, is able to more easily access them and built this. Side note, if this is true, it also implies that Elizabeth died after the Bite of 83, so that's a neat little timeline clear-up. Interestingly, the mother is the one at the head of the table, drawing more attention to her than the rest. What makes this interesting is that the Afton mother has never really been relevant before. It's always been William being the most important to the lore, followed by Michael and Elizabeth, and then the crying child last. The closest we had before was speculation that Ballora maybe represented the Afton mother. Also on that note, this service bot does seem to have the Ballora blue hair, so that might be a point in favor of that idea. But now we have this, where the mother takes center stage in a way, as well as another mention of her in the CDs.
I'm talking about the custody battle between your mum and your dad. I know your mum after she lost the custody case.
I was supposed to be a good girl.
What happened to her had nothing to do with you, even though it was your testimony that did it.
All of this attention toward the mother figure, regardless of how periphery it seems, I don't know, it feels important to me somehow, but I can't quite put my finger on it. If you have any ideas, let me know in the comments below. And speaking of CDs, there were a couple more notable bits that I think could give some credence to this theory. First, we have this.
I have a craft space in my basement. Maybe I could come up with something you could learn to do.
I don't like dark basements.
Which I think would either be referencing where you find the Vanny mask in Help Wanted, or could be a reference to Sister Location where, if you'll remember, Elizabeth as Baby was kept in, essentially, a dark basement for who knows how long before she escaped in Michael. Then, we have this.
I can't talk about this. He said he would always be watching. He could be here, or there, or anywhere in between.
Are you talking about your dad? Have those feelings come up again? I hate sounding like a broken record, but this is something you really need to resolve if you're ever going to be happy.
I have. I compartmentalized him. He's locked away.
And what's interesting about this one is that Vanessa doesn't correct the therapist. Even though it's clear Vanessa is talking about Glitch Trap in this moment, she doesn't say anything about the therapist assuming it's her father, only saying that she compartmentalized him. This could lead to supporting the idea that Glitch Trap, even if Vanessa might not fully realize it, is her father. And the final CD I wanted to talk about is this one.
This person who is contacting you knows a lot about you.
Lots of people know more than I do. Sometimes I need to listen.
And for this one, I'm stretching. I know I'm stretching. Logically, I know Vanessa is probably just talking about needing to listen to Glitch Trap because, well, obviously. But as soon as I heard this, I just couldn't help but think about how Elizabeth didn't listen to William, and because of that, she was killed by Circus Baby. The kind of lament that we hear in the voice actor's performance could be a kind of repressed memory coming forward of Elizabeth realizing she needs to listen, or else something bad will happen again. And that brings us back to something I briefly touched on earlier, probably the most confusing ending in the whole game, the fire ending. So, Vanessa is clearly Vanny. Literally, that is the only thing that makes sense based on another ending of the game, all of these CDs, and every other lore hint. Then the fire ending comes around and does this. Freddy kills Vanny and Gregory unmasks her to reveal Vanessa. Cool, great. Well, everyone saw that coming, but it's fine. Then, after the credits, they show Vanessa watching on the roof of the burning Pizzaplex. Now, I'm confused too, Gregory. What's going on here? The way I see it, it's one of two things. Either A, Vanessa's spirit being trapped in the mall, watching as her body dies due to her never being freed from Glitch Trap's control, which is a tried and true storytelling trope in these games, or B, Vanny making a new body specifically for herself, or something? I don't know, that might work if she's secretly an animatronic, but who knows? Phasgo? I don't know. Alright, so admittedly, that ending throws a bit of a wrench in this theory, which was already iffy at best. Still, what do I think of this idea overall? Possible? Sure. Probable? In no world is this probable. Plausible? I'm kinda on the fence, because I really like the idea, I just don't know if there's enough supporting it. Regardless, though, whether you think Vanessa is Elizabeth or is just to kind of stand in with related story points, looking at the game through this light gives, for lack of a better term, the good ending of the game, a kind of bittersweet edge to it. If you play every Princess Quest minigame, you are able to free Vanny from Afton's control. The final screen is her sitting with Gregory and Freddy watching the sunrise. What makes this bittersweet is when you look at it with this theory in mind, it's kind of like seeing the closure and happy ending that the original Afton children never got the chance to have. You obviously have Vanessa representing Elizabeth, then you have a very morbid representation of the crying child with a golden-ish Freddy who is literally just ahead. And then there's Gregory, the player character of the game representing Michael, who, prior to Ultimate Custom Night, was the player character for most of the mainline FNAF games. They're free of William's control and able to move on. And Elizabeth finally got her ice cream. Well, at least that's one interpretation of this game. And one interpretation of Gregory in particular. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention I kinda misled you earlier. Those CDs did give recording of Vanessa's therapy sessions, and those were the only clips I drew from, but they also gave clips from another person's therapy. One who, based on the context clues, was a child. And whoo boy, there's a lot to go through there, but it'll have to wait for another time. But hey, those are just my thoughts. What do you think? Agree? Disagree? Think I'm really stretching it in this theory? Let me know in the comments down below. And, subscribe. I'm gonna try and do a video every couple of weeks or so you might find something you like. Till next time, safe journeys, my friends.